Hello everyone, so today I wanted to get into some predictions I have for this next year and what I've gotten right in the last year on my last YouTube channel. However, we're not going to count it as I deleted my last YouTube channel, as I really just needed a break. But let's quickly dive into this. So before I get into any of what I'm about to get into, which are corn futures, the Chinese yuan, you know, a bit of crypto stuff, the dollar and silver. Before I get into any of that, I just want to say none of this is financial advice. I am not your licensed financial advisor. Please do your own research and due diligence. Don't bet the farm on what some guy on YouTube says. Again, that I have to make that abundantly clear. If it gets annoying, it's because I have to make it clear. But anyways, let's get into corn futures. Corn futures, as of this, we had talked about corn futures on my last channel. And again, this is one of the assets I've traded the best. Well, not really traded, but predicted the best. I don't really have any skin in the futures game. I wish I could, but not really an option for me right now. So we really see that we have these kind of, we had this local bottom here right before, things got crazy. And then we started to see, major supply shocks in this time period. And that has really disrupted a lot. Now, one thing I will say I did get wrong was food inflation would come down. Sure, the price of the overall commodity has come down, but one thing I did not factor, and this is something I should have factored, is it really takes time to see food inflation go down because there's either one of two theories going around. One, it's price gouging, or two, which I think is more likely, the market is in flux and it does take a lot of time for food producers to really factor this in. Now, could it be that there's also price gouging? Definitely. I could definitely see that because corn prices have decided to fall, and as I said last year, they would continue to drift lower, and sure enough, they have. Now, they are in this descending channel, so right now we're at a critical point in this channel. Will we continue to go down lower? If we do, you can expect corn prices to go all the way down to $3.50 per bushel, or you can expect them to spike all the way to roughly $5 a bushel. That is a little over $5 a bushel. Let's say close to $6. That's the range I'm aiming for. So anywhere in this box, and how I get that box is what I do is a Fibonacci retracement from top to bottom. If we can just do it here. Why is it not letting me? Jeez, these things are just... This computer, guys. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But it's basically the 50 to the 382. That's where I get this from. Okay, so I'm expecting it to consolidate within there before deciding if it wants to break down or go up, but that's for 2026 or 2027. I can't really tell you what it's going to do yet based off of this time period, but I think it's more likely we do see a resurgence. And again, there are several other farm articles suggesting, Successful Farming, for example, is suggesting that we are going to go up, and I would personally agree with this. I would personally agree with this because they've said input prices have come down, but the inflation for input prices has. But again, input prices have not come down. So how can you justify having record high cost, but at the same time, your grain prices are super suppressed? That's the key word, suppressed. I would say that it is likely, and again, don't bet the whole farm on this, literally if you're a farmer, I would suggest that this thing is to go up and is to probably go here. Again, if you're a farmer, please consult with somebody that would know what is going on there. But again, that's the farming portion of this video. For me, this is a good thing, though, if it does decide to go up, which it might be hope for me because, again, I work in the agriculture industry. I think that, this thing could definitely go, if it does decide to do this, that's a relief for a lot of producers and for people that work in the industry. Consumers, a little less so. Again, that is if it does affect food prices, but we do see a lag with these. So maybe food prices are sticky. Maybe they continue to go up for a while. I don't know. I hope not. But again, this is better for the industry overall to happen, but not necessarily the consumer. So it's better by a marginal portion, depending on what happens. If it does decide to drift lower and this is just a fake out, breakout, then not good for farmers, but it is, I would say it's good for consumers. That is if the market decides to stop being in flux and if the prices decide to depress themselves for food, which I think that would only be fair. That is just my humble opinion, though. Now, speaking of prices in the dollar, relative to the US dollar, the Chinese yuan seems like it wants to, well, this is USD to Chinese yuan. So, again, it seems like the Chinese yuan wants to try to weaken on the US dollar just a little bit more. So, notice here at $7.30, we're kind of tapping up against this 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Guys, I think that's a pretty solid sign that we are against some very weak resistance right now, and I'm potentially wanting to see a resurge. So, again, in January of 2023, I predicted this thing would continue to go down, would not continue to go down, but would eventually go down. It did go down, but it decided to resurge and then consolidate. I should have done an update on this back in the day, but I decided I was way too busy, guys, with work, with a lot of things. There were a lot of things going on. But again, the Chinese yuan decided to resurge and really print this kind of bull flag. So it really depends on what it decides to do. If it decides to go past, let's say $7.40, I could see this thing going all the way up. Where it would go up, I'm not quite sure, but probably, again, there is this kind of, let's just reload this very quick because I want to show this point to you guys. Again, there's our point. There's this kind of trend line, if you'll notice. Again, I could see it hitting that trend line at some point for sure. So, depends if we stall out here or not, but it could definitely go against the trend line. If it decides to go higher, it's hard to say where it would go, but let's do this. Let's try and see. So, I could see this thing going as high as possibly the second extension here, the 2618, so $7 and, excuse me, not $7. $1 would be equivalent to 7 yuan and 1.76 yuan. So, 7.76 yuan. So, again, guys, I think that is definitely a possibility if it does not get stopped out by this trend line, which is definitely possible. So it could just do a one last high and then we could go lower. Because again, I am still seeing that this is in an overall downtrend, guys. The trend is still down until we can really decide to go higher. So if it does decide to go higher, that's great. But overall, that's really going to depend if we can break through this parallel channel. If we can, well, that's great, that's fantastic. But if not, that doesn't really do much if we can't break through this parallel channel. So again, expect that decision point to come at 7.5 yuan roughly per dollar. So that's really that. Or $1 for every 7.5 yuan. Now, speaking of China, the Shanghai Composite does suggest that there could be some kind of resurgence in the Chinese economy. Now, could that be an inflationary resurgence or a production resurgence? Hard to tell. I'm starting to think it might be a bit of both. But China's been in a major deflationary spiral. However, the government of China has been printing a bunch of stimulus. And from what I've heard, the situation in China is pretty bad. Now, however, I do expect this thing to decide to break out and possibly hit all the way to, up here, the 4.236 extension. But we're going to get into the reasons why and the possible catalyst and some similar charts. So, really, we'll get to how I arrive at this target in a little, but the main reason, as I've been talking about, is the stimulus. Again, China's economy is not doing super well. It's been in a deflationary spiral, and you might be like, But isn't that a good thing that it's in a deflationary spiral? Because here in the West, we're struggling with this sticky inflation, and it doesn't seem to come down. And while inflation has come down, prices have not come down, and the average person really cannot afford this much longer, I don't think, and is already at the brink. I have heard so many stories. It's sad, quite frankly. It really is. But again, there's been sales volume declining, and there's been a lot of decline in China, and the output growth has slowed to both a year ago. Again, that's really bad, guys. That means China's technically almost in a Great Depression type of situation. It's definitely in a recession, China, production-wise. I'm not sure about GDP-wise, but I definitely think that if the government decides to stimulate, which it does look like they might, like if we look at the end of this article, let's see, most economists would expect more measures from Beijing, more stimulus measures, guys. I think that is probably what's going to end up happening, because it has to overall. It has to happen. Because if it doesn't, they're just going to continue to spiral into deflationary pressures, and I think China is a leading indicator because, again, we will see demand destruction throughout the rest of the world at some point. I don't know when China's indicator is going to take place, or like when we're going to shift over to more of this kind of scenario, but for China, what I would see is a breakout of this pendulum structure. So again, if we measure from the bull flag, from the pole of this, from the bottom all the way here to the top all the way here, we really see that China could well go to the 4.236 extension if we were to take this line back here. Again, we measure from the bottom to the top to the breakout. If it's to break out from here, that is. There's no guarantee of that, guys. It could lull us for a little longer, if you will. It could definitely do that. It could go for one last boink down and then try to break up or break down. But I'm thinking that's not probable. I'm thinking it's more probable and likely that we are going to see the 4.236 extension hit at some point. Again, you might be wondering, well, where do you get this idea from? Well, if we look at the chart of XRP, everybody, and again, this is one of the tokens I am proud to still hold a little bit of. Again, I have had to scale back a little. Let's be real, guys. But again, XRP, and that's not to say XRP won't crash, but I think it could consolidate here for a little bit longer, much like it did up here, before, like, several months, okay? Several months, guys. We're probably not going to see this thing, go up for another 2 consecutive months like back here. It's possible. It definitely is possible, but I see another few months of consolidation before we ultimately hit our 5th wave target for here. But again, this structure is just like the Chinese stock market. Again, I want you to notice crash, retrace, reaccumulation, and then breakout. Those are not that's not my style of theory. Again, I didn't come up with that whole structure. That was a YouTuber that covers XRP very well, BC Backer. I'm going to give him credit there where credit is due. I'm not trying to take his idea, but I'm just trying to show you guys hey, this is where I got it from. But I think we could apply that theory for XRP to the Chinese stock market and possibly see this thing explode, kind of like it did before 2008. Or 2007, October of 2007, and it did so very quickly. So again, this is interesting. The Chinese stock market loves to consolidate and then explode, loves to consolidate, and then it goes up really quick. I think it is very possible that that happens here. Am I saying I'm personally going to bet on China? I don't know if I'm in the position to do that just yet, but I'm just really making these videos for fun. So again, now that we've spoken of China's stock market versus XRP and the similarities there, let's talk about crypto in general. What I'm seeing happening is Bitcoin dominance does seem like it wants to make one last push higher to the 786, and I'll show you what I mean here. If we just take this Again, because I don't know if this thing's going to comply or not, so we're going to shift this around. Again, we're going to the 786, guys, much like we did on the dollar chart right here. So again, we shift this around. And then we just put that there. Yep, 786 up there, and then, yeah, again, that really is what I'm seeing, is I'm seeing Bitcoin dominance is probably going to drift just a little bit higher like it did here. So again, I want you to notice something, guys. It could drift up to this point, or even like closer to it. Like we could see, rather than 65% dominance, 68. And I know that's not what a lot of people want to hear, but this opens up the door for us to possibly get all the way down to 20 to 22% dominance. That's a pretty big deal, guys. Again, that probably wouldn't happen until the fall of this year. So if I had to guess when Altseason is going to be, it's either going to be this spring if we decide to break down now, but we would probably only go to 25%, or do you want it later in the fall when that opens the door for an extra few percentage? And that might not sound like a huge deal, but to me, that's a pretty big deal. If we were to go from 25% Bitcoin dominance to 22%, it might not seem like much, but 3% for trillions of dollars, it can make a lot of difference, guys. So I'm suggesting this. I'm suggesting we do have a little bit more of a pain trade before the grand alt season that everybody's been talking about for years, if it does happen. I've been very humbled by these markets in trying to predict when it's going to happen. And quite frankly, when it does happen, it's going to last quite a while. Again, at least the distribution period, because I want you to notice something here with that DXY fractal. That looks exactly the exact same, guys. The exact same. Okay, notice down here it lasted for a lot longer than it did right in here. So, again, let's go back to the Bitcoin dominance. It will probably last a lot longer than it did in here. So it could last quite a while. This distribution is probably not going to go away. Could it V-bottom and go away right away? Sure, I could definitely see that. Fractals can deviate. And it's also possible that we do begin this thing in the spring and that, you know, we decide to go already in the spring. But we can't be sure yet. Okay, we can't be 100% sure that this is exactly how it's going to play out. If it's going to be this fall, this spring, or in a year or two. But I think alt season is definitely going to happen at some point. It's because we've been drifting up like this, and every time we do, there has to be some kind of correction to that. Again, markets ebb and flow, and right now we've been in a very long ebb for the altcoin market for like 2 years now. 2 whole years. Almost 3. Let's be real. This has been since January 2022. It's almost January 2025. That will be 3 whole years, guys. 3 years. Okay, and if this thing does decide to pain trade us a little longer, so be it. But I think it is possible we do get a little longer of a pain trade before we possibly can see a further breakdown of this. Okay? That's really just what I'm seeing coming out of this. So that's that for altcoins. As for silver, this is another prediction I'm proud of. Now, again, altcoins I'm a little less proud of because I was hyped. I was hoping that alt season would come right away and that OXT, XRP, and Alchemex and all these coins that I've talked about would finally show their true colors. But that's not happened yet. I think XRP is going to consolidate for here. XRP definitely has shown its true colors. Has it gone up to $10? Not just yet, no. Has OXT done anything? It started to recover, but nothing that serious. Nothing even worth looking at. Well, it is, okay, it is going to show some show of strength at some point, as I talked about in my last video. But on the grand scheme of things, it's not a whole lot that's worth talking about. Alchemex, however, I would say is probably Again, Alchemex is interesting, guys. We really just see this consolidation continuing, and for how long it's going to continue, I'm not quite sure, but I think that this thing is going to continue to trend upwards, and that the next target to the upside is somewhere, at least at this resistance, if not in the $60 range. So that's for if it decides to go up, and if it truly decides to confirm this bullish trend. Again, that's if we decide to confirm a bullish trend. If it is bearish, which I really don't see a reason to be bearish on Alchemex, honestly, guys. I especially with this consolidation going on here. I think, now, again, if it does decide to break lower, the next few targets are back down here at $12. But I don't think it's going to break from this area. I actually think we're going to see a reversal. I don't know if it's going to be a strong or a grinding reversal. Nobody can really tell at this point, but if we do decide to see a reversal from here, and we do decide to go higher again, again 71, but probably this area right here is probably where I would, again, guys, I'm looking more for this area right now to get broken through before we can confirm we're macro bullish. Until then, this is just a Wyckoff. This is just Wyckoff. It's that simple. Just Wyckoff, and it's the same thing with OXT. It's just a Wyckoff accumulation as of now. Again, we see our spring, our last point of support, and we're trying to eventually do our show of strength out of here. That takes time. That doesn't happen right away. So, again, things like this take time, but it can happen really quick when it does decide to happen, so be ready. But again, altcoins are something that I got wrong last year. I thought the alt season would be this year. I've said that for a while, I know, but at some point it's going to happen. And it's probably going to be a 2017 style alt season. That is my humble opinion. This is going to be a crazy, crazy run for crypto in general. But again, the Chinese yuan I got more or less right. Corn I got right for sure. Okay, again, I've gotten that right for sure. XRP was right. Silver was probably the best prediction I had of them all. I was hoping that's, again, I was trying to record this video before, but silver looks like it's possibly making a cup and handle, or could go higher, or my more likely opinion is that this thing's actually going to go down and consolidate for a little bit longer around the $18 to $19 range, guys. That is my humble opinion. I think we're going to probably test this last point of support again. Just my belief. Because again, I think this was our spring. This is our automatic rally. If I were to just guess, I think we're getting on up. While we could get on up out of here, it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen just yet. So again, I predicted silver would see a major resurgence. Sure enough, it did, and we got to the 618, guys. That's pretty good, well, close to it. Again, we got higher than here when the Wall Street bets silver craze was going on. That's crazy to think about. I remember everyone was so excited when silver was $30. Really, it seems, less excitement now, but like it seems pretty, it's pretty exciting to think about. We got to $35, and you might be like, well, that's a... But yeah, the thing is, if I got down in here at $18, I still have that junk silver. I still have it, guys. So again, I'm just waiting and seeing what's going to happen here, but I think it's very likely we do see one more push to the downside and then some consolidation. I'll do what I do accordingly. But with all this being said, I want you all to have a wonderful day and a happy new year. I will see you guys next year, probably sometime in February or March. Again, I'm going to do these videos every now and then, but I'm going to try to make them more thought out. Because again, it just seems like we really got to try this. In order for me to actually predict these things more or less accurately, I need time. I can't be just pumping out content like some people. I'm not that kind of person. I'm built a little differently. But yeah, with all this being said, I want y'all to have an absolutely wonderful day. If you enjoy this video, please like, please subscribe, Again, I deleted my last channel because I had to really take a break, guys. It was just, it's been crazy. It's been a lot going on in my life and a lot of new developments. But, yeah, until next year, bye-bye. Cheers.